Xenowatchers fled in terror when a human pulverized a Deathworld Leviathan barefisted became reality as Captain Lara, Steelfist Hayes, gasping toxic air with exposed lungs, summoned humanity's primal strength. With overcharged gauntlets failing and death certain, she leaped onto the monster's back, delivering a spine-shattering blow that echoed through caverns, proving humans were the galaxy's most terrifying apex predators. The winds of Vulcan howled with toxic fury, carrying particles of volcanic ash that would strip unprotected flesh to the bone in minutes. Beneath the murky crimson sky, a research outpost stood defiant against the hostile environment, a collection of reinforced durasteel structures built to withstand acid rain, extreme temperature fluctuations, and the occasional tremor from the ever-active volcanic range to the north. Captain Lara Steelfist Hayes adjusted her atmospheric respirator and squinted through the polarized visor of her exosuit helmet. After 2 weeks on this hellscape, she still couldn't believe anyone would voluntarily come here. Vulcan had earned its classification as a deathworld for good reason: corrosive atmosphere, unstable geology, and indigenous life forms that had evolved terrifyingly effective killing mechanisms. "Status report on perimeter sensors?" she asked, her voice crackling through the comm system to the command bunker. "All green, Captain," came the reply from Sergeant Ruiz. "Though Sensor Array 4 is showing intermittent fluctuations, probably interference from the magnetic ores in the eastern ridge." Lara nodded to herself. "I'll check it personally. Keep an eye on the xenobiologists. Last time I found Dr. Solon trying to collect acid lake samples without proper containment protocols." "Roger that. Babysitting the eggheads continues." Lara smiled despite herself. The Xenowatchers were brilliant in their respective fields, but their scientific curiosity often outweighed their survival instincts. As the military liaison assigned to this expedition, her primary mission was to ensure they all returned home alive, a task proving increasingly difficult with each passing day. The outpost hummed with activity as she made her way toward the main laboratory module. Representatives from 7 different species moved about with purpose, each wearing customized environmental protection suited to their unique physiologies. The Xenowatchers were the Interstellar Alliance's premier scientific body, tasked with cataloging and studying life forms across the galaxy's most extreme environments. Lara paused at the laboratory entrance, watching as Dr. Merrick Solon, the human lead xenobiologist, argued animatedly with Agent Kalo, the Draln security officer assigned to the Xenowatchers. "We cannot simply observe from a distance," Solon insisted, gesturing to holographic readouts displaying complex biochemical analyses. "The cave network shows signs of ecosystem stratification unlike anything we've documented before." Kalo's crest of sensory filaments rippled with irritation, the drawn equivalent of a human scowl. "The preliminary scans indicate seismic instability in that sector. My primary directive is the safety of this expedition." "And mine is the advancement of knowledge," Solon countered. "We've been over this countless times. The Xenowatcher doctrine is to observe natural systems before they're compromised by outside intervention." Lara cleared her throat, interrupting the familiar argument. Both turned to face her, Solon's expression brightening while Kalo's crest flattened in deference to her military rank. "Captain Hayes," Solon greeted her warmly, "perhaps you can provide a more progressive perspective on our current impasse?" Lara removed her helmet, revealing her close-cropped dark hair and the thin scar that ran from her left temple to jawline, a souvenir from an earlier deployment to the ice moons of Europa. "What I can provide is a tactical assessment. If you're planning another excursion, I need details." Solon activated the central holographic display, which expanded to show a 3-dimensional map of the surrounding terrain. "We've detected unusual electromagnetic signatures emanating from this cave system, approximately 8 kilometers northeast of our position. The patterns suggest either geothermal activity or, more intriguingly, biological origin." Lara studied the topographical data, her military training automatically calculating defensible positions, extraction routes, and potential hazards. That's awfully close to the active caldera. Ground stability? 63% and declining, Kalo interjected before Solon could respond. Which is precisely why we need to investigate now, Solon finished. If it's biological in nature, these life forms may have adapted to harness geothermal energy directly. The scientific implications would be enormous. Lara considered the options. Her orders from Earth Alliance Command were clear: support the Xenowatchers while ensuring their safety. But there was flexibility in how she interpreted those directives. We'll take a small team, she decided. Minimal footprint, maximal data collection, 3 scientists, 3 security personnel including myself, full environmental gear, and emergency protocols in effect. Kalo's crest twitched with disapproval, but the Dralm nodded in acceptance. I will accompany the team personally. As will I, Solon added, already gathering equipment. We'll need xenobiologist Trell for their expertise in extremophile adaptations. Lara replaced her helmet, the seal hissing as it locked into place. Briefing in 20 minutes, full equipment check before departure. And Dr. Solon. She fixed him with a pointed stare. This time, you follow protocols to the letter. No improvised specimen collection. No wandering off alone. Clear? Solon had the good grace to look sheepish. Crystal clear, Captain. As the scientists bustled about preparing for the excursion, Lara pulled Sergeant Ruiz aside. Something about this doesn't feel right, she confided. The electromagnetic readings, the proximity to the caldera. Keep the extraction team on high alert. Ruiz nodded, his weathered face grim behind his visor. Always do, Cap. Something's always trying to kill you on a Deathworld. 2 hours later, the expedition team made its way across Vulcran's treacherous landscape. They traveled in a modified terrain vehicle designed to withstand the planet's caustic environment, its massive puncture-resistant wheels grinding over fields of obsidian shards and pockets of smoking, sulfurous vents. Inside the vehicle, Lara monitored their progress, while Solon briefed the team on what they might encounter. Xenobiologist Trell, a Nuvarian with translucent skin that revealed the pulsing of their 3 hearts, manipulated a portable sensor array with their delicate tendrils. The signal is strengthening, Trell announced, their voice melodious despite the translator module, and becoming more rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat, Solon finished, excitement evident in his voice. Or a communication pattern. Kalo's crest fully extended, a sign of heightened alertness. Or a warning. The vehicle crested a ridge, revealing a vast depression in the landscape. At its center, a yawning cave entrance spewed occasional plumes of green-tinged vapor. The surrounding rock was darker, almost metallic in appearance, with veins of phosphorescent material running through it like circuitry. Magnificent, breathed Solon, pressing against the view screen. Those bioluminescent patterns, they're responding to our presence. Indeed. The glowing veins seemed to pulse more rapidly as the vehicle approached, their intensity increasing until the entire cave entrance was outlined in eerie green light. Stop here, Lara ordered the driver. We continue on foot, but maintain constant communication with the vehicle. First sign of trouble, we retreat immediately. The team disembarked, testing the ground with specialized probes before committing their weight to it. The surface crunched beneath their boots, a brittle crust of mineral deposits that had formed over what appeared to be hardened magma flows. Atmospheric readings show elevated levels of methane and hydrogen sulfide, reported Trell, studying their handheld analyzer. Consistent with bacterial decomposition in anaerobic conditions. Life finding a way. Even here, Solon remarked, carefully collecting surface samples. The resilience never ceases to amaze me. They approached the cave entrance cautiously, powerful illuminators cutting through the gloom. The phosphorescent veins continued inside, providing an otherworldly glow that cast everything in sharp relief. The tunnel sloped downward, widening as they progressed deeper into the planet's crust. Temperature increasing, noted Kalo. Approaching 47 degrees Celsius. The electromagnetic signature is much stronger now, Trell added. Definitely biological in origin, but unlike any pattern I've encountered before, the complexity suggests higher-order neural activity. Lara felt a prickle of unease travel down her spine. Define higher order. Intelligence, Solon answered before Trell could respond. Possibly sentience. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in darkness despite their powerful lights. The floor descended in natural terraces toward a central depression filled with a bubbling, viscous substance that glowed with the same phosphorescence as the veins in the rock walls. It's some kind of biological soup, Solon whispered, awe evident in his voice. A primordial environment protected from the surface conditions. Lara scanned the cavern with practiced efficiency, noting defensive positions and potential hazards. Spread out, but maintain visual contact, standard collection protocols, and nobody approaches that pool without clearance. The team moved forward cautiously, each member focused on their specialized tasks. Solon and Trell gathered samples and took readings, while Kalo and the security team established a perimeter. Lara kept her attention on the shadows at the edges of the cavern, where their lights couldn't quite penetrate. It was Ruiz who first noticed the tracks. "Captain," he called, his voice tight with tension. "You need to see this." Lara joined him at the edge of one terrace, where the stone floor bore unmistakable impressions, massive, three-toed footprints that dwarfed Ruiz's outstretched hand. "These are fresh," Ruiz noted, pointing to the still damp edges. "Whatever made them is still here." Lara immediately activated her comm. "All personnel, defensive positions. We have evidence of large fauna in the immediate vicinity." The scientists froze, then began to move with practiced precision toward predetermined rally points. Kalo drew a compact energy weapon, its tip glowing blue as it powered up. "Movement," warned one of the security team, gesturing toward the far side of the cavern. "Large mass, approaching fast." The ground trembled slightly, a rhythmic pattern that matched the pulse of the phosphorescent veins. From the darkness emerged a nightmare made flesh, a creature so massive it seemed impossible it could have navigated the tunnel they'd used to enter. Its body was serpentine but armored with overlapping plates that resembled volcanic rock. 6 limbs extended from its torso, each ending in vicious claws that could easily shred through their environmental suits. But it was the head that truly inspired terror. Triangular, with multiple sets of eyes that glowed with the same phosphorescence as the pool, and a maw lined with teeth like obsidian daggers. "Deathworld Leviathan," breathed Solon, his scientific detachment momentarily overwhelmed by primordial fear. "A perfect apex predator, evolved for this extreme environment." The creature paused, its head swaying as it sensed the intruders in its domain. Multiple gill-like structures along its neck flared, sampling the air. "Nobody move," Lara ordered quietly. "Weapons ready, but do not fire unless I give the command." For a tense moment, the Leviathan seemed to be assessing them, its ancient eyes reflecting an intelligence that sent chills through even the most hardened members of the team. Then, with frightening suddenness, it lunged toward the scientists. "Evasive action!" Lara shouted, already moving to intercept the creature. "Ruiz, covering fire! Kalo, get the scientists to the exit!" The cavern erupted into chaos. Energy weapons discharged, filling the air with the smell of ozone and the crack of superheated particles. The Leviathan roared, a sound so deep it vibrated through their bodies, rattling equipment and loosening stones from the ceiling. Lara activated her power gauntlets, massive mechanical fists that enhanced her strength and provided additional protection. They hummed to life, energy fields crackling around her clenched fists as she charged toward the creature. "Hayes, fall back," Ruiz shouted over the comm. "That thing's hide is deflecting our weapons." Indeed. The energy bolt seemed to splash harmlessly against the Leviathan's armored plates, leaving only superficial scorch marks. The creature swung one massive limb, catching a security officer and sending him flying across the cavern to impact against a wall with a sickening crunch. "Get everyone out!" Lara commanded, dodging a sweeping claw. "I'll hold it off!" Kahlo hesitated, torn between duty to the scientists and the military chain of command. "We cannot leave you." "That's an order. Agent Kahlo, protect the Xenowatchers." The drawn security officer finally complied, herding the scientists toward the exit tunnel while Ruiz provided covering fire. Lara faced the Leviathan alone, her power gauntlets the only meaningful defense against the monster's overwhelming strength. The creature lunged again, its jaws snapping shut where Lara had stood a split second earlier. She rolled beneath its massive body and struck upward, her enhanced fist connecting with the softer tissue beneath its armored plates. The Leviathan shrieked, a sound that threatened to rupture eardrums even through their protective gear. "That's right. You overgrown lizard," Lara taunted, knowing the creature couldn't understand her words, but responding to the primal need to face fear with defiance. "Let's dance." The battle became a deadly game of cat and mouse, with Lara using the terraced landscape to maintain distance while looking for opportunities to strike vulnerable points. The Leviathan grew increasingly enraged, its attacks becoming more frenzied, but less coordinated. Lara saw her opening when the creature reared up to deliver a powerful strike. She dashed forward, enhanced muscles and power armor propelling her faster than any unaugmented human could move, and delivered a devastating uppercut directly to the Leviathan's throat. The impact reverberated through her entire body, power gauntlets absorbing much of the force but still leaving her arms numb. The creature staggered backward, momentarily stunned, giving Lara precious seconds to retreat toward the exit. She almost made it. The tunnel entrance was in sight when the ground beneath her feet suddenly gave way, a natural sinkhole collapsing under the vibrations from their battle. Lara tumbled downward, powerless to stop her descent as rocks and debris accompanied her into darkness. She landed hard on a lower level of the cave system, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs despite her armor. Warning indicators flashed across her helmet display. Minor suit breach. Oxygen levels dropping. Power reserves in her gauntlets down to 30%. Above, she could hear the Leviathan's roars and the crash of its massive body as it searched for her. Dust and small rocks continued to rain down from the hole through which she'd fallen. "Ruiz, do you copy?" she called into her comm, receiving only static in response. The dense rock was interfering with communications. She was on her own. Lara took stock of her situation with the cold calculation of a veteran soldier. Her suit was compromised but still functional. Her weapons were intact. She had approximately 40 minutes of oxygen remaining, enough time to find another way out if she moved quickly. The phosphorescent veins were present on this level as well, providing enough illumination to navigate. Lara followed them, reasoning that they might lead to another entrance, or at least away from the enraged Leviathan. She'd traveled perhaps 200 meters when she heard it, a low rumbling that rapidly grew in intensity. The creature had found another way down. "Perfect," Lara muttered, searching for defensive positions in the new tunnel. There were fewer options here. The passage was narrower, with fewer places to maneuver. But that worked both ways. The Leviathan would also be more constrained. She backed into a small alcove, power gauntlets humming as she recharged them to maximum capacity. The rumbling grew louder, accompanied by the scrape of claws on stone and the creature's heavy breathing. It appeared at the far end of the tunnel, its massive bulk nearly filling the passage. In the phosphorescent light, it looked even more terrifying, a primeval nightmare of tooth and claw and armored hide. It paused, sensing her presence, then began to advance with deliberate slowness, as if savoring the hunt. Lara considered her options. Running would only trigger the predator's chase instinct. Her weapons had proven largely ineffective against its armored exterior. That left one choice: attack from a position of strength. "Come on then," she whispered, muscles tensing in preparation. "Let's finish this." The Leviathan charged suddenly, covering the distance between them with shocking speed. Lara waited until the last possible moment, then leaped upward, using the tunnel walls to launch herself over the creature's head. As she passed above it, she struck downward with both gauntlets, targeting the less protected area where head met body. The impact was tremendous. The Leviathan crashed into the wall where Lara had been standing, momentarily stunned by her strike and its own momentum. Lara landed behind it, immediately pressing her advantage by hammering blows into its unprotected flank. The creature recovered quickly, whipping its massive tail around and catching Lara squarely in the chest. She flew backward, slamming into the tunnel wall with enough force to crack her helmet visor. Alarms blared in her ears as her suit's integrity was further compromised. "Systems failure imminent," warned the suit's AI. "Oxygen depletion in 22 minutes. Lara struggled to her feet, vision blurry from the impact. The Leviathan had turned to face her again, blood or some equivalent fluid dripping from wounds she'd managed to inflict. It was injured, but far from defeated. In that moment, staring into the ancient eyes of the apex predator, Lara made a decision born of desperation and the fundamental human refusal to accept defeat. She disengaged her helmet, exposing herself to Vulcran's toxic atmosphere. The air burned in her lungs immediately, acrid and filled with particles that scraped her throat raw. But it bought her time and freed her from the constraints of the failing suit. She activated her gauntlet's emergency overcharge function, pushing them beyond safety parameters. "Power levels critical," the gauntlet's systems warned. "Overload imminent." "Just give me 1 minute," Lara gasped, each breath painful, as Vulcran's atmosphere assaulted her unprotected respiratory system. The Leviathan seemed confused by her actions, perhaps interpreting the removal of her helmet as a sign of surrender or incomprehensible alien behavior. It hesitated, and that hesitation gave Lara the opening she needed. She charged, moving faster, without the bulk of the full suit, and launched herself directly at the creature's head. Her overcharged gauntlets connected with its jaw in a thunderous impact that echoed through the tunnel. Bone cracked, and the Leviathan reeled backward. But it wasn't enough. The creature recovered, rage overtaking pain, and lunged again. Lara ducked beneath its jaws, feeling teeth graze her back, tearing through the remains of her suit and into flesh beneath. She screamed in pain, but turned the momentum into a spinning strike that connected with the creature's throat. Blood filled her mouth, her lungs burning from the toxic air. Darkness edged her vision, but ancient human instincts had taken over, the fight-or-flight response that had allowed humans to survive on their own Deathworld long enough to evolve intelligence and technology. Lara struck again and again, each blow fueled by the primal determination to survive. Her gauntlets began to fail, energy fields flickering as they reached their limits. The Leviathan, too, showed signs of weakening, its movements becoming slower, less coordinated. With one final, desperate effort, Lara summoned all her remaining strength and leaped onto the creature's back. She locked her legs around its neck and brought both gauntlets down on its spine with every ounce of force her augmented muscles could generate. The sound of cracking exoskeleton echoed through the tunnel. The Leviathan convulsed violently, then collapsed, its nervous system severed by the precision strike. Lara tumbled from its back, gasping for breath that only brought more pain as Vulcran's atmosphere continued to ravage her lungs. Through blurring vision, she saw movement at the end of the tunnel, figures in environmental suits rushing toward her. The last thing she registered before losing consciousness was Ruiz's voice, distorted through an external speaker. My God, she killed it with her bare hands. Lara awakened in the outpost's medical bay, the familiar hiss of oxygen and the sting of regenerative compounds in her lungs, telling her she was alive before she even opened her eyes. When she did, she found Dr. Solon standing over her, his expression a mixture of concern and something else. Fear, perhaps, or awe. "Welcome back, Captain," he said, checking readings on the medical monitors. "You've been unconscious for 26 hours. Lara tried to speak, but her throat felt raw, scorched by Vulcarin's toxic atmosphere. Solon placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Don't try to talk yet. The damage to your respiratory system was extensive, though the nanomed treatment is progressing well. You should make a full recovery." She gestured weakly, mimicking writing. Solon understood and provided a datapad. Lara's fingers shook as she typed. "The team? All safe, thanks to you." Solon's voice softened. "Sergeant Ruiz led a rescue mission after you fell. When communications failed, he tracked your biosignature using the outpost's long-range scanners." Lara nodded, relief washing through her. She typed another question. "The Leviathan?" At this, Solon's expression changed subtly. "Dead. You broke its spinal column with your power gauntlets. The xenobiologists are still studying the remains, though most are doing so remotely, via drones." He hesitated, then added, "No one wants to go back into those caves." Lara wasn't surprised. She'd seen the terror in the Xenowatchers' eyes when the creature first appeared, a primal fear that transcended species differences. She typed, slowly, "Reaction?" Solon understood her abbreviated question. "Mixed. The scientific community is fascinated by the discovery of such a complex organism, adapting to Vulcarin's extreme conditions. But there's also concern." She raised an eyebrow questioningly. "About you," Solon admitted. "About what you did. The recording from your suit's cameras has been viewed by the entire Xenowatcher High Council." Lara frowned. She hadn't been aware her suit was still recording after the systems began to fail. "They saw everything, Captain. How you removed your helmet in toxic atmosphere. How you continued fighting despite injuries that would have incapacitated most beings. How you killed a creature that evolved over millions of years to be the perfect predator. With your fists." Lara typed slowly. "Did my job, protected team?" "Yes, you did," Solon agreed. "But you also demonstrated something that many in the Interstellar Alliance have long suspected, but rarely witnessed firsthand. Humans are far more dangerous than our technological level would suggest." He stepped closer, lowering his voice despite them being alone in the medical bay. "There's a reason Earth was quarantined for so long before being invited to join the Alliance. Most spacefaring species evolved on worlds far more hospitable than Earth. They developed technology to overcome their biological limitations. Humans," he gestured to her. "Humans evolved to survive on what would classify as a borderline Deathworld by Alliance standards." Lara hadn't considered this perspective before. Earth, with its wide temperature variations, natural disasters, predators, and diseases, had shaped humanity into a species that refused to accept limitations, that continued fighting long past the point where rational beings would surrender. She typed, "Implications?" Solon sighed. "Agent Kalo has recommended that the Xenowatcher High Council classify humans as a potentially dangerous species, requiring additional monitoring. Several council members have already agreed." Anger flared in Lara's chest. She had saved their lives, and this was their response? She stabbed at the datapad. "Would they prefer I let it eat them?" "Of course not," Solon assured her. "And many recognize your heroism. But fear is a powerful motivator, Captain. What they witnessed was primal. It reminded them that beneath our civilized exteriors, humans retain capabilities that most Alliance species bred out of themselves millennia ago." Before Lara could respond, the medical bay door slid open, admitting Sergeant Ruiz. His normally composed features showed signs of stress, dark circles under his eyes, tension in his jaw. "Captain," he acknowledged with a nod. "Good to see you conscious." He turned to Solon. "Doctor, I need a moment with the captain. Military matters." Solon hesitated, then nodded. "Of course. Don't overtire her. Sergeant, her recovery is still in the early stages." Once Solon had left, Ruiz moved closer to Lara's bed, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "We have a situation developing. The Xenowatchers are preparing to evacuate Vulcran." Lara raised an eyebrow in question. "Your fight with the Leviathan caused more damage than we initially realized," Ruiz explained. "The cavern system has become unstable. Seismic readings indicate increasing activity in the surrounding volcanic range." Lara reached for the datapad again. "Natural or consequence?" "Both. According to the geologists, the area was already unstable. But your battle with that thing, especially the final impact, sent shockwaves through the underlying magma chambers. They're predicting a major eruption within the next 72 hours. Guilt flooded through Lara. She had saved the team. Yes. But at what cost? If her actions triggered a volcanic cataclysm, the delicate ecosystem they'd been studying would be devastated. "There's more," Ruiz continued, his expression grim. "When the first tremors started, some of the scientists deployed additional scanner drones into the cave system. They've detected something larger." Lara's blood ran cold. She remembered the Leviathan's eyes, ancient, intelligent, filled with a malevolence that seemed too focused for a mere predator. "The creature you killed," Ruiz said, confirming her unspoken fear. "It wasn't a mature specimen. It was an adolescent." Lara closed her eyes, processing this new information. If what she'd fought was a juvenile, the adult would be exponentially more dangerous. She typed quickly. "Evacuation status?" "In progress. First transport leaves in 6 hours. Your medical pod is scheduled on that flight." Ruiz straightened, military discipline reasserting itself. "Earth Alliance Command has ordered a full withdrawal. No exceptions." Lara frowned. Something in Ruiz's tone suggested there was more he wasn't telling her. She typed, "Your orders?" Ruiz's expression hardened. "I've been instructed to remain with a skeleton crew to collect final data on the Leviathan specimen and secure any sensitive equipment. We'll evacuate on the last transport, after the volcanic activity reaches critical levels." It was a suicide mission, and they both knew it. If the eruption accelerated, Ruiz and his team would be trapped. Lara shook her head vehemently and typed, "Unacceptable risk." "Not my call, Captain," Ruiz replied, a hint of resignation in his voice. "Orders came directly from Section Chief Vega." Lara's eyes narrowed. Section Chief Vega headed Earth Alliance's Xenobiology Warfare Division, a secretive department that studied alien life forms for potential military applications. If Vega was involved, the priority wasn't scientific data or equipment. It was acquiring samples from the Leviathan for weapons research. She typed rapidly, "Help me up. Going with you." "Absolutely not," Ruiz countered. "You're barely alive, and under medical evacuation orders." Lara fixed him with a stare that had cowed hardened soldiers on multiple battlefields. She slowly typed, "Not leaving my team." Ruiz held her gaze for a long moment, then sighed in defeat. "You always were the most stubborn officer in the Corps." He checked the medical readouts. "The nanomed treatment has repaired the worst of the damage to your lungs. If we recalibrate your exosuit's life support to compensate for the remaining issues, maybe." Lara nodded firmly, already pushing herself upright despite the pain that lanced through her body. She had 12 hours before the final transport departed. 12 hours to regain enough strength to accompany Ruiz's team back into the caves. 12 hours to prepare for a confrontation with a mature Deathworld Leviathan. The outpost had transformed in the time Lara had been unconscious. What had been an organized research facility was now a chaotic evacuation zone, with Xenowatchers hurriedly packing equipment and specimens while constantly checking the seismic monitors that warned of increasing volcanic activity. Lara moved through the corridors slowly, her damaged body protesting every step despite the support of her partially repaired exosuit. She had discharged herself from medical care against Dr. Solin's vehement objections, relying on portable nanomed injectors to continue her treatment while mobile. She found Agent Kalo overseeing the loading of research materials onto one of the transports, the drone's crest fully extended in what Lara had come to recognize as a state of extreme stress. "Captain Hayes," Kalo acknowledged, mandibles clicking in surprise. "You should not be ambulatory in your condition." "Need to speak with you," Lara replied, her voice raspy from damaged vocal cords. "About Ruiz's final mission?" Kalo's compound eyes shifted nervously. "I am not privy to Earth Alliance military operations." "Don't lie to me, Agent," Lara countered, moving closer despite the pain it caused. "You're Xenowatcher security. Nothing happens involving potentially dangerous species without your knowledge." The drone's crest flattened slightly, a sign of acquiescence. "Very well. Yes, I am aware of Sergeant Ruiz's assignment to retrieve biological samples from the juvenile Leviathan." "And the mature specimen?" Kalo's crest rippled with alarm. "That information is restricted to—" "Cut the bureaucratic nonsense," Lara interrupted, her patience wearing thin. "My team is walking into extreme danger. I need to know what they're facing." For a moment, Lara thought the drone would refuse. Then Kalo gestured toward a quiet corner of the loading bay, away from the bustling activity of the evacuation. "The mature specimen," Kalo began, once they were relatively private, "is approximately 3 times the mass of the juvenile you encountered. Our scanners indicate it resides in a magma chamber beneath the cave system, using the extreme heat as both protection and energy source." "Sentient?" Lara asked, recalling the intelligence she'd seen in the younger Leviathan's eyes. "Unknown, but probable," Kalo admitted. "The electromagnetic patterns emanating from its neural structures are complex enough to suggest higher cognitive functions." Lara processed this information, mentally adjusting her assessment of the threat level. "And Ruiz is being sent to collect samples from the juvenile, knowing the parent is nearby and likely aware of its offspring's death?" "Correct," Kalo confirmed, "though I voiced my objections most strenuously. The risk is—" "Unacceptable," Lara finished. "Which is why I'm going with them." Kalo's crest flattened completely, the drawn equivalent of a shocked expression. "Captain, with respect, you barely survived an encounter with the juvenile, against the mature specimen, even at full strength." "I'm not planning to fight it," Lara clarified. "Just ensure my team gets out alive with whatever samples your scientists need." Kalo studied her for a long moment, compound eyes unreadable. "You humans continue to confound me," the drone finally said. "Most species would calculate the odds of survival and make the rational choice to evacuate with the others." "Most species didn't evolve on Earth," Lara replied, echoing Solin's earlier observation. "Indeed." Kalo's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is why you are both so formidable and so frightening to the rest of the Alliance." Before Lara could respond, a low rumble shook the outpost, causing equipment to rattle and several Xenowatchers to cry out in alarm. The tremor lasted only seconds, but left no doubt that Vulcran's volcanic activity was intensifying. "Time is short," Kalo stated, decisiveness returning to the drone's voice. "If you insist on accompanying Sergeant Ruiz, you will need proper equipment." The security agent reached into a nearby crate and removed a small device. "This is a prototype neural disruptor, designed specifically to affect organisms with the neural pattern exhibited by the Leviathans." Lara accepted the device, examining it carefully. "Will it kill the mature specimen?" "No," Kalo admitted, but it may disorient it long enough for your team to escape if confronted. It has never been field-tested on a living subject. Better than nothing, Lara decided, securing the device to her utility belt. Thank you, Agent Kalo. The Draln's crest rose slightly in acknowledgement. I still believe your species requires additional monitoring, Captain Hayes. But I also recognize the debt we owe you for saving our research team. Consider this partial repayment. 6 hours later, as the second-to-last transport lifted off from Vulcran's surface, Lara stood with Ruiz and 4 other soldiers at the entrance to the cave system. Their modified terrain vehicle had been equipped with additional reinforcement and enhanced propulsion systems to ensure a rapid escape once their mission was complete. Final equipment check, Ruiz ordered, his voice tense. The seismic activity is increasing faster than predicted. We have approximately 3 hours before this whole area becomes a lava flow. Lara verified her exosuit systems, noting with concern that the oxygen recirculation was operating at reduced efficiency due to her earlier damage. She would need to be conservative with her exertion levels. Remember, she addressed the team, we go in, collect the required samples, and get out. No heroics, no detours. If you encounter the mature Leviathan, do not engage. Use emergency flares to disorient it and fall back to Extraction Point Alpha. The soldiers nodded grimly. They were Earth Alliance Special Forces, selected for their experience in extreme environments. But even they looked apprehensive about entering the lair of a Deathworld apex predator. Stay tight, stay focused, Ruiz added. Captain Hayes has faced one of these things and lived. Follow her lead if contact occurs. They entered the cave system cautiously, powerful illuminators cutting through the darkness. The phosphorescent veins still glowed, but their pattern had changed, pulsing more rapidly, as if agitated. The ground trembled occasionally beneath their feet, small stones dislodging from the ceiling with each vibration. Lara led them along the path she had taken during her previous expedition, noting changes in the terrain. The battle with the juvenile Leviathan had left scars on the cavern walls, energy weapon burns, and impact craters from her power gauntlets. There, Ruiz indicated, pointing to where the massive carcass lay sprawled across the lower terrace. Extraction team, move in, security, establish perimeter. The specially trained extraction technicians approached the fallen Leviathan, deploying equipment designed to collect tissue, fluid, and neural samples without contamination. Lara positioned herself at the highest vantage point, scanning the surrounding darkness for any sign of the mature specimen. Movement detection systems active, reported one of the security team. Nothing yet, but there's interference from the volcanic activity. Lara nodded, her enhanced senses straining beyond what technology could provide. There was something different about the cavern, a change in air pressure, perhaps, or a subtle shift in the phosphorescent patterns. Something was watching them. Ruiz, she called softly over the comm. How much longer? Extraction at 60%, he replied. 12 minutes to completion. A stronger tremor shook the cavern, dislodging a shower of rocks from the ceiling. One of the extraction technicians cursed as a falling stone damaged part of their equipment. Rerouting collection protocols, the technician reported. Delay of approximately 5 minutes. We may not have 5 minutes, Lara warned, her instincts screaming that danger was imminent. Ruiz, what's the minimum viable sample size? Ruiz consulted his datapad. According to Section Chief Vega's parameters, we need at least 70% of the designated tissue types. Current status? 64%. Lara made a quick decision. Pack what you have. We're leaving now. Captain, our orders. We'll get us all killed if we stay, Lara interrupted. Trust me. Sergeant, something's coming. As if summoned by her words, a deep rumble echoed through the cavern, different from the seismic tremors, more focused, more purposeful. The phosphorescent veins pulsed brighter, their rhythm quickening to a frantic pace. "Move! Now!" Lara shouted, activating her power gauntlets. "Back to the vehicle! Security team, covering positions!" The extraction technicians hastily secured their samples, while the security team formed a protective cordon. They began a tactical withdrawal toward the exit tunnel, moving with the practiced precision of veteran soldiers. They had almost reached the tunnel when the cavern floor erupted in a geyser of molten rock and shattered stone. From the newly formed pit rose a nightmare that dwarfed even the juvenile Leviathan. A behemoth with armored plates that glowed red-hot from its magma chamber habitat. Its multiple eyes fixed immediately on the humans, burning with an intelligence and hatred that transcended mere animal instinct. "Run!" Lara commanded, positioning herself between the creature and her team. "Get the samples to the vehicle. I'll hold it off." "Not again, Captain," Ruiz countermanded, taking position beside her. "No one gets left behind this time." The mature Leviathan roared, the sound so powerful it dislodged stalactites from the cavern ceiling. It lunged forward with shocking speed for its massive size, one clawed limb sweeping toward them. Lara and Ruiz dove in opposite directions, the Leviathan's attack missing them by centimeters. The security team opened fire, energy weapons discharged at maximum power. Unlike with the juvenile, these shots did register, leaving smoking craters in the creature's armor, though not penetrating deeply enough to cause serious damage. "It's adapted to volcanic heat," Lara realized aloud. "Regular energy weapons won't have enough impact." She activated Kalo's neural disruptor, aiming it at the Leviathan's head. The device emitted a high-pitched whine as it powered up, then discharged a focused beam of pulsing energy. The effect was immediate, but not what Lara had hoped. Rather than disorienting the creature, the neural disruptor seemed to enrage it further. The Leviathan shrieked, its massive body thrashing in apparent pain or fury. "Fall back to the tunnel," Lara ordered, seeing that they had only made the situation worse. "Bottleneck its approach!" The team retreated toward the narrower confines of the exit tunnel, where the Leviathan's size would work against it. But the creature seemed to anticipate their strategy. Instead of pursuing directly, it slammed its massive bulk against the cavern wall near the tunnel entrance, causing a cascade of rocks to block their escape route. "We're cut off," Ruiz reported unnecessarily, already scanning for alternative exits. "The secondary tunnel is 200 meters to the east, but the path is exposed." Another violent tremor shook the cavern, this one lasting longer than the previous disturbances. Cracks appeared in the floor, venting superheated steam and noxious gases. "The eruption is accelerating," one of the technicians warned, checking a portable seismic monitor. "This entire system will collapse in less than 30 minutes. Lara assessed their options with the cold calculation of a veteran soldier. The Leviathan blocked their primary escape route. The secondary route would leave them vulnerable to attack while traversing open ground. And time was rapidly running out as Vulcaan's volcanic activity approached critical levels. There was only one solution, a diversion. "Listen carefully," she instructed the team. "When I engage the Leviathan, you make for the secondary exit. No arguments. No heroics. The samples need to reach Earth Alliance Command." Ruiz's expression hardened. "Captain, with all due respect..." "That's an order. Sergeant," Lara cut him off. "I'm not planning a suicide run. I'll divert it long enough for you to reach the tunnel, then follow when I can." It was a lie, and from Ruiz's expression, he knew it. But military discipline prevailed. He nodded grimly, gathering the rest of the team with a gesture. "On my signal," Lara said, activating her power gauntlets to maximum output. Warning indicators immediately flashed across her helmet display. The gauntlets were still damaged from her previous encounter, and pushing them beyond safety parameters would likely result in catastrophic failure. She ignored the warnings. 3, 2, 1, go! Lara charged directly at the Leviathan, power gauntlets crackling with energy as she pushed her damaged exosuit to its limits. The creature's attention fixed on her immediately, multiple eyes tracking her approach with malevolent intelligence. Behind her, Ruiz led the team toward the secondary exit, moving swiftly but carefully across the unstable cavern floor. The Leviathan noticed their movement but seemed to prioritize Lara as the greater threat, perhaps recognizing her as the one who had killed its offspring. "That's right," Lara taunted, dodging a sweeping claw. "Focus on me, you oversized fossil!" The Leviathan roared and lunged, its massive jaws snapping shut where Lara had stood a moment before. She rolled beneath its guard and struck upward, power gauntlets connecting with the softer tissue beneath its armored chin. The impact reverberated through her entire body, gauntlets absorbing much of the force, but still sending pain lancing through her damaged muscles. The Leviathan reeled backward, momentarily stunned by the unexpected power of her strike. Lara pressed her advantage, leaping onto one of the creature's limbs and running up its length toward the more vulnerable joint where limb met body. The Leviathan thrashed, trying to dislodge her, but Lara maintained her balance with the preternatural coordination that had made her one of Earth Alliance's most effective combatants. She reached the joint and struck with all her augmented strength, power gauntlets overloading as they delivered a devastating impact to the unarmored flesh. The Leviathan's limb went limp, temporarily paralyzed by the targeted neural shock. But the victory came at a cost. One of Lara's power gauntlets sparked and failed, energy field collapsing as internal components fused from the overload. She was down to half strength, facing a creature that could crush her with a single blow. A quick glance showed Ruiz and the team had nearly reached the secondary tunnel. Just a little longer, and they would be safe. Lara turned her attention back to the Leviathan, which had recovered from its momentary disorientation and was now focusing all its rage on her. It attacked with renewed fury, multiple limbs striking from different angles, forcing Lara into a desperate dance of evasion. Her exosuit's enhanced reflexes kept her ahead of the attacks, but each near miss brought the creature's claws or teeth closer to connecting. A particularly violent tremor shook the cavern, throwing off Lara's timing. She stumbled momentarily, and it was enough. One of the Leviathan's secondary limbs caught her squarely, sending her flying across the cavern to impact against a stone column with bone-crushing force. Warning indicators flashed red across her helmet display as her exosuit reported multiple system failures and detected several broken ribs. Lara struggled to rise, every breath sending spikes of pain through her chest. The Leviathan approached slowly, almost methodically, as if savoring her defeat. Its intelligent eyes held what Lara could only interpret as satisfaction, a predator that had finally cornered its prey. In that moment, facing imminent death, Lara experienced a clarity that transcended fear or pain. She saw the Leviathan not as a monster to be defeated, but as a magnificent apex predator perfectly adapted to its harsh environment, a creature defending its territory and avenging its offspring against invaders who had no right to be there. "I understand," she whispered, though the creature couldn't comprehend her words. "This is your world, not ours." The Leviathan paused, head tilting slightly, as if puzzled by her sudden stillness. In that brief moment of connection between predator and prey, Lara felt an odd sense of respect, even kinship. Both were survivors, adapted to overcome the most hostile conditions their respective worlds could present. The moment shattered as another, more violent tremor rocked the cavern. A fissure opened in the floor between Lara and the Leviathan, venting a column of superheated gas and molten rock that forced the creature backward. The cavern ceiling began to collapse in sections, massive stones crashing down around them. Lara saw her opportunity. With the last of her strength, she activated her exosuit's emergency propulsion system, a one-time use feature designed for rapid extraction from collapsing structures. The system engaged with a roar, propelling her toward the secondary tunnel where Ruiz and the team had disappeared. Behind her, The Leviathan roared in frustration as more of the cavern collapsed, forcing it to retreat toward its magma chamber sanctuary. Lara's vision blurred from pain and exertion as she hurtled through the air, the tunnel entrance growing larger in her field of view. She barely cleared the opening before the propulsion system failed, sending her tumbling along the rough tunnel floor. Each impact sent fresh waves of agony through her broken body, but she forced herself to keep moving, crawling when she could no longer walk. "Captain!" Ruiz's voice echoed down the tunnel. And then he was there, supporting her weight as they staggered toward daylight. "I came back when you didn't follow. The others are at the vehicle." "Samples?" Lara managed to ask through gritted teeth. "Secure," Ruiz confirmed, "but worthless if we don't get off this rock alive." They emerged from the tunnel, into Vulcaran's harsh daylight. The sky now darkened by ash from increasing volcanic activity. The modified terrain vehicle waited 50 meters away, engines already running in preparation for immediate departure. "Move!" Ruiz urged as another tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. A nearby fumarole erupted, spewing toxic gas and superheated steam into the air. They had almost reached the vehicle when Lara felt it. A rhythmic vibration through the ground that didn't match the pattern of the volcanic tremors. She glanced back to see the tunnel entrance expanding violently as something massive forced its way through. The mature Leviathan burst into the open, its armored hide glowing red from the intense heat of its subterranean habitat. It fixed its multiple eyes on Lara and Ruiz, a sound like grinding stone emanating from its throat. "It followed us," Ruiz said unnecessarily, pulling Lara faster toward the waiting vehicle. "It wants revenge," Lara corrected, understanding the intelligence behind those ancient eyes. "And it won't stop until it gets it." They reached the vehicle, the door sliding open automatically to admit them. The security team already had weapons trained on the approaching Leviathan, though their expressions showed they held no illusions about their effectiveness against the behemoth. "Drive," Ruiz commanded as soon as they were inside. The vehicle lurched forward, powerful engines propelling it across Vulcaran's broken landscape at maximum speed. The Leviathan pursued, moving with shocking speed for its massive size. It closed the distance rapidly, clawed limbs gouging deep furrows in the ground with each powerful stride. "It's going to catch us before we reach the extraction point," one of the security team warned, monitoring the creature's approach on tactical displays. Lara made a decision that had been forming in her mind since the moment she'd locked eyes with the Leviathan in the collapsing cavern. "Stop the vehicle." Everyone turned to stare at her in disbelief. "Captain, with all due respect, that thing will tear us apart," Ruiz objected. "It wants me," Lara stated with absolute certainty. "Not you, not the samples. Me. I killed its offspring." Understanding dawned in Ruiz's eyes. "You can't be suggesting—" "It's the only way," Lara interrupted. "Stop the vehicle. Let me out. Then continue to the extraction point while it focuses on me." "Absolutely not," Ruiz countered. "We don't leave our people behind." Lara fixed him with a stare that brooked no argument. "This isn't about military protocol. Sergeant, it's about survival. Yours, the team's, and the valuable data you're carrying." She gestured to her broken body. "I'm already compromised. My exosuit is failing, and internal injuries are severe. But I can buy you enough time to reach the extraction point." The vehicle shuddered as a particularly violent tremor shook the landscape. In the distance, one of Vulcaran's major volcanic peaks began to erupt, sending a massive ash cloud into the atmosphere. "Time's running out," Lara pressed. "Make the call, Sergeant." Ruiz hesitated, torn between military duty and human compassion. Finally, he nodded grimly. "Stop the vehicle." As the transport slowed, Lara struggled to her feet, ignoring the pain that threatened to overwhelm her consciousness. "Once I'm clear, drive at maximum speed and don't look back. The extraction shuttle won't wait if the eruption reaches critical levels." "Captain," Ruiz began, then seemed at a loss for words. Lara managed a small smile despite her pain. "It's been an honor, Sergeant. Tell Earth Alliance Command." She paused, considering her final message. "Tell them to leave this world alone. Some places aren't meant for us." The vehicle door slid open, revealing Vulcran's toxic landscape and the rapidly approaching Leviathan. Lara stepped out, her remaining power gauntlet activating with a final surge of energy. "Go!" she commanded, and the vehicle accelerated away, leaving her alone to face the apex predator of a Deathworld. The Leviathan slowed as it approached, perhaps surprised by this unexpected development. Its intelligent eyes studied Lara, head tilting slightly, in what might have been curiosity. Lara removed her damaged helmet, exposing herself to Vulcran's toxic atmosphere for the second time. The air burned her lungs, but she barely noticed the pain among her many injuries. She stared directly into the creature's eyes, one predator acknowledging another. "Just you and me now," she said, dropping into a combat stance despite knowing the futility of resistance. "Finish what we started." The Leviathan regarded her for a long moment, then did something unexpected. Instead of attacking, it lowered its massive head to her level, bringing those ancient eyes within meters of her position. A deep rumbling emanated from its throat, not a roar of aggression but something more complex. In that moment, Lara felt a connection that transcended species, a recognition between two apex predators, each masters of their respective hostile environments. There was no forgiveness in those eyes for what she had done to its offspring, but there was something like respect. The ground beneath them shuddered violently as Vulcran's volcanic activity reached critical levels. In the distance, Lara could see the extraction shuttle lifting off, carrying Ruiz and the team to safety. Her mission was complete. The Leviathan's head swung toward the departing shuttle, then back to Lara. With deliberate slowness, it backed away from her, turned, and began moving toward a nearby ridge, away from the most active volcanic zone. Lara watched in disbelief as the creature that had pursued them so relentlessly simply left. Had it recognized a greater threat in the volcanic eruption? Or had something in their final confrontation satisfied its need for vengeance? She would never know. As the Leviathan disappeared over the ridge, Lara collapsed to her knees, strength finally failing as her injuries and Vulcran's toxic atmosphere took their toll. The ground continued to shake beneath her, fissures opening to release superheated gas and molten rock. In her final moments of consciousness, Lara looked up at Vulcran's roiling sky, thinking of Earth, another harsh world that had forged humanity into something both terrifying and remarkable. Perhaps that was the true legacy of Deathworlds. They created survivors who refused to accept defeat, even in the face of impossible odds. As darkness claimed her, Lara, Steelfist. Hayes smiled. She had completed her mission. Her team was safe. And in dying on this alien world, she had perhaps helped preserve it from further human interference. A final act of respect for a Deathworld and its magnificent apex predator. The Xenowatchers would tell the story for generations to come. How a human faced a Deathworld Leviathan with nothing but augmented fists and unbreakable will. How the ground itself had trembled from the force of their confrontation. And how, in the end, both predators had recognized something of themselves in the other. It was a reminder that in the vast, dangerous universe, respect between apex predators might be the closest thing to peace that Deathworlds ever know.